The name Chuck Colson conjures many images. A former captain in the Marine Corps, a highly regarded corporate lawyer, a top aide to President Nixon, and a convicted felon because of involvements in the Watergate situation. Chuck founded Prison Fellowship in 1976 and has become an influential author and speaker, radio commentator, and perhaps one of the world's clearest thinkers on worldview issues. For myself, above all else, Chuck Colson is a sterling example of a life that has been transformed by the power of the gospel. And today we have the great privilege of hearing his views on some of the most critical issues of our day. Chuck, it's wonderful to be with you.
John, thank you. Well, I enjoy being with you, and I enjoy your work and Intercessors, the great work they're doing in America, and your leadership of it. So I'm delighted we have this opportunity to spend some time together.
The last time we were together, it was several months ago, you spoke of the tension that you've had between work in the prisons, which is where so much of your heart is, and your writing and speaking on worldview issues. Could you just explain why you feel the need for that major emphasis?
Well, when I got out of prison, John, I had a burden for the men that I'd left behind and a real sense of God's call. And His hand has been on us all these years as we've worked in the prisons. And that to me has been thrilling. I love to preach in the prisons. I love to share the gospel with the inmates. But it became clear to me that we had to be concerned with more than just pastoral ministry to prisoners, because the conditions that were driving people into prison were broader. They were in the culture as a whole. So I began to study and realize that it was the breakdown of moral values in society that led so many people, led us to raise a generation of children basically like feral children in the wilderness with no conscience. And that's what's filling our prisons. Prison population in America has gone from 239,000 when I got out of prison in 1975 to 2,100,000 this year.
Which is tenfold
increase. Staggering. And nothing is working except the kind of thing that we're doing. But about halfway through it, I realized we've got to be concerned with the culture as a whole. I began to read and study and write on questions of biblical worldview. Now, that's not an arcane academic term. That's a real-life term, because everybody has a worldview. Everybody has an idea of how the world works and how they fit in. And Christians have a well-formed biblical worldview because the Bible gives it to us. So I became really concerned with issues of worldview, understanding the false values of the culture, critiquing them, thinking Christianly, and then presenting a biblical view in opposition to it. In any event, the last few years, the Ministry of Prison Fellowship is in great hands with Mark. Mark Early is the president. I'm able to spend more time teaching, and so I want to devote the last years of my ministry, as God gives me the time and the strength and the energy, to do what Samuel did in the late days of his ministry, which was to raise up a school of prophets. So I'm working now to teach worldview and to write about it in books, which I've just done in And How Shall We Live and in The Good Life, and try to get people thinking differently and thinking Christianly about all of life.
Well, it's a mammoth undertaking to try to help shift an entire culture, but if there's somebody in our society today who can have a profound influence, you're that man, and we want to commend you for putting that emphasis on such root cause issues that can affect the lives of ultimately millions of people, not just the people headed for prison, but others as well.